The numbers, Mason. What do they mean? Let's talk about some numbers here today, because we had ourselves an Elliot Friedman tweet going over the arbitration status of one player on the Red Wings whose overall potential is honestly pretty high, in the short term and the long term. Let's talk today about one of the pieces the Red Wings acquired in the Anthony Mantha trade with the Washington Capitals, Jakub Vrana. One of the Czech golden boys on this team. We made a video earlier in the year talking about how Vrana, Hronek, and Zadina were doing pretty good things for Team Czech Republic, so there's kind of the connection there with the team. But hey, you don't need me to tell you who Vrana is. If you're a Red Wings fan, you know who he is. He's 25, he's a winger, 6 feet, 196. One of the many assets Stevie Y was able to pull from Washington in that Mantha trade. And he's a guy who, coming over to Detroit, was a literal point-per-game player. 11 games played with the Wings, 11 points, in a bigger role than what he was given with Washington. This season with the Caps, 25 points in 39 games played. He had a career high of 52 points in 69 games last season, 2019-20, 25 goals too. His biggest knock has been the fact that in the postseason, the guy usually doesn't really do all too much. I mean, in the Cup run, he had 8 points in 23 games, yes, but the next 2 playoff runs with the Caps, 0 points, but hey, who cares? If you're the Red Wings, you don't care about a guy's playoff stats at this time in your rebuild. You still have a ways away before you even make the playoffs. And a guy like Vrana, despite the fact that he does need a new contract, he's a point-per-game player on your team, he's valuable, and that's why we have our discussions here today about what exactly the contract negotiation process has been. We have ourselves an arbitration process coming up for a boatload of NHL players with the ability to renew and sign a regular contract before then, but if there's no agreement to be reached, an arbitration will be held. You know what an arbitration is, but if you don't, hey, it's a third party coming in here, looking at all the variables, saying, okay, for you, the player, you do this, you score this amount of goals, you do all this stuff, you're asking for this, we feel like this is a fair price for you. The team, you're asking for this, you know this guy's X amount importance to your team or whatever, then the mediator goes up and he comes up with a number that you have to agree on. This is the tweet from Elliot Friedman talking about the numbers of what both sides are asking for heading into the arbitration. Jakub Vrana wants $5.7 million a season. The Red Wings want $3.65. Now, I know the baseline number is, oh my goodness, they're $2 million away. The Red Wings are not going to be able to sign this guy. How are they going to do it because he wants so much more money than they're willing to give him? Calm down. This is normal. This is fine, and it's actually pretty standard process as to how these negotiations usually go down. Because at the end of the day, it's a negotiation. It's in the name. Have you ever negotiated a contract before? You have to ask yourself, okay, well, I know I'm worth, let's say, $4 million. But in order to actually make it worthwhile for me, if I say 4, it's easy for the team that I'm talking to say, okay, well, you want 4, let's give you 3.5. How does that sound, bud? Which is why you have to go out there and you have to project yourself and you have to say, okay, even though I know in my head I'm worth 4, I'm going to say I'm worth 6, so that if they work the price down, it's, at the end of the day, I don't know, maybe 4.1 or 4.3. And the end result would be, hey, I'm getting a little bit more than what I would have been comfortable with at the first place. And the team has to say the same thing. Okay, we feel like Vrana is a $4.5 million player, but just so we can do this negotiation thing, let's say we're going to offer him 3.6. Because if we say, all right, 4.5, we'll give you that. It's easy for the agent to say 4.5. Why not 4.75 or 4.8 or 4.9? Let's just increase the price a little bit here. I've got a client to feed. This is the kind of thing that leads to these extremely wide spreads, $3.65 million versus $5.7 million. I will say this, though, right off the bat. If Jakub Vrana really does show off that he is the guy that he was in Detroit this season, he plays a top 6 role, he gets his mojo together, he scores a point per game, then I'll say this right here, that's worth a lot more than $5.7 million a year. Heck, give the guy 6 or 7 if he gets a point per game. Of course, though, you can't go out there and just use the point per game, 11 games played, 11 points thing as your number one and only argument in these contract negotiations, because there are other variables to consider as well. Okay, in Washington you produce less, in the playoffs you don't really produce as much at all. It's honestly pretty interesting for me to think about the past and how everything has gone down with Vrana, because the way it's shaping up, I would be really surprised if they did not do a bridge deal of some sorts over here, mostly because Vrana, for the majority of his career, he's been a really good middle six, 50-ish point guy. He gets a little bit better point per game seasons once in a while, but with Detroit, he really did show off that he fit well with this system. I mean, you don't get 8 goals in 11 games played by being a scrub. So from the perspective of Stevie Y, from the perspective of Vrana himself, would not be surprised in the slightest if we had ourselves a contract agreement that's, I don't know, like 2-3 years, maybe at like 4 point something. It's got to be somewhere less than 5, right? I mean, the difference is $2 million right now. It would make sense if the negotiation and the agreement is probably, let's just say, halfway in the middle, something like that, $4.7, $4.8 million-ish. If they get him at 4.8 for like 3 or 4 years or whatever, and he produces at a point per game, this could be a crazy good contract, depending on how exactly it goes down. But who knows? And that's just talking mostly about the negotiations themselves and talking about whether or not we have an actual, okay, Vrana, this is what we're going to give you, and Vrana says yes kind of situation. If we have a fully fledged out arbitration process instead, things are going to be different, because arbitrators, I believe they can only hand out 1 or 2 year deals, something like that. They can't go 3 or 4. So the entire process there shifts around. If you're getting Vrana to a shorter term contract, it's easier to say, okay, maybe we'll go a little bit less. You can bet on yourself a little bit, and then by the time 2022 or 2023 rolls around, then we'll negotiate based off of a bigger sample size of your time with Detroit. One thing's for sure though, Vrana's getting a pay raise. Plain and simple. He was making like $3.3 something million beforehand, so he hasn't really ever been in a position where he has been making good money. Like, okay, great. $3.3 million, that's fine. I'd be fine with $3.3 million. But take a look at this, man. He was getting $3.3 million when he was getting 52 points in 69 games and 25 goals. If you do the math on that, 52 divided by 69 multiplied out by 82, he was on pace for 61 points and however many goals that is, 30. 60 points, 30 goals, $3 million bucks? Are you kidding me? This guy is due for a payday at some point, and it's kind of funny because his payday, if we cap it out at $5.7 million and he continues doing the things that he has done with Detroit, this could be fantastic. So that's just kind of implying that he actually progresses and does better than he has before, which I hope is the case, but of course it's not guaranteed. I just really am more optimistic for this kind of player than I would be for somebody else, like, let's say, Anthony Mantha. No, I don't want to throw shots at Anthony Mantha. Don't want to do that. He was fine. We know he was fine here. Talk to me in the comments what you think about the entire negotiation process with Jakub Vrana and everything that we have seen over here, because it is pretty interesting, you know, taking a look at the numbers and whatnot. So talk to me in the comments what you think about you enjoyed this video. Rosén, and bye.